A technical glitch with our new camera system. Sorry about that. I'll run quickly through our announcements. This week we have the Senior Covenant Group coming in on Tuesday at 3 o'clock to 4:30. We have Seekers here at 10 o'clock on Wednesday morning. We're planning a hike the following Wednesday. There's a book group called Salt Eaters. That's the name of the book reading. They're going to read virtually on Thursday the 19th. At 10 or 11, check the website, but Salt Eaters is the book. Julia Schwartz's paintings are going to be available soon. We're beginning to try this in the LA system, and we're grateful that you've hung in there if you have. So I've lit our chalice already. Our words come from Barbara Wells. Let's take a deep breath and presume we're just starting. She says, "O spinner, weaver of our lives, your loom is love. May we who are gathered here be empowered by that love. Empowered to weave new patterns of truth, empowered to bring justice into the web of life that is strong, beautiful, and everlasting." For those who are here each Sunday, you'll recall that 2 weeks ago we began a two-part series on the lived experiences and lessons of mental health. Most mental health issues are without, those who don't have a formal diagnosis can understand, in part at least, highlight on the in part. What I mean is that we all know anxiety without having a formal anxiety disorder. We all know what it feels to be depressed without clinically suffering from depression. We've all been forgetful without having Alzheimer's, and we generally know what it is to be distracted without having ADHD. We all generally know these things, and we all know instinctively there's a boundary, albeit a porous one, between feeling a certain way and what might be labeled being part of your life a certain way. So we're going to hear today from a combination of the following sort of messages from our folks. We're going to hear about the people who fear revealing their diagnosis and illness is both to themselves in that moment of self-reflection, but also about the stigma and pity that they might have if they bring it forward. We're going to hear about the shifts in psyche and consciousness and well-being. We're going to hear about the honesty and liberation of feeling the freedom and jangling nerves of the grandiose ideas that come with mania at its best side. We're going to hear about the anxiety or the fear of the fall. We're going to likely hear a message that mental health issues, particularly diagnosed ones, are mostly about management more than they are about recovery, and that periods of well and not well, manic and not well, stable and not well, are probably defined better by commas than they are by periods. We're going to hear a message that you should not postpone care. We're going to hear a message that people can define these experiences even if they don't believe in demons or monsters, but those metaphors can be helpful. All of that awaits. Please join in the pleasure of Severin singing for us a hymn.
Good morning. Today I would like to talk a little bit about empathy and sympathy. When I was a little boy, I had a neighbor whose son was behaving rather awkwardly. He didn't talk much and he couldn't talk very much. And very often he would have a temper tantrum, and I didn't understand it at all. And other kids used to call him names or make fun of him. It is much later in life that I discovered that he had what we today call autism spectrum. So we have to be both empathetic and sympathetic to those who are afflicted with something. Now, empathy is when you literally feel somebody's pain in you, and sympathy is when you comfort somebody. So that's the difference. We need to do both. We need to comfort those who are in some kind of pain or suffering, and we can really do when we feel their pain in our own hearts. So please be aware that those who are different than us may really be suffering, and do the best for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Naresh. We're going to light our candle for all those joys and concerns that remain unsaid. And joy and concern for ourselves here on this crazy Sunday. I'm going to share a prayer. On November 20th every year, it's Transgender Awareness Week. And this is a poem written by Sean Dennison. Spirit of infinite love, be with me and my people. Help us know we are loved wholly and deeply, exactly as we are. Help us to know that our faces are a reflection of the face of the sacred, the face of God. Help us to understand that our longing to be whole and tell the truth of our holiness be received. Be with us when we are afraid. Be with us when we are proud and joyful. Be with us when we are confused. Protect us from our enemies. Help us to transform the oppression we seek into a determination to stand up for ourselves and for any that we see being oppressed. Help us to learn to accept our anger when it is necessary and appropriate, and to let it go when it causes harm, a harm we so know. Help us to accept and celebrate the diversity in our own community and show the world it is possible to truly love one another in all the forms of it. We're here today talking about mental health, and it falls on Transgender Awareness Week. Let's hold all those who don't fit the standard in our hearts and become strong advocates for a whole and beautiful world, a rainbow coalition of this place, and making it the beloved community it can be. Amen. And now some beautiful music from Sarah.
the tomb of the soul, we carry secret yearnings, pains, frustrations, loneliness, fears, regrets, worries.
In the tomb of the soul, we take refuge from the world and its heaviness.
In the tomb of the soul, we wrap ourselves in the security of darkness.
Sometimes this is a comfort, sometimes it is an escape.
Sometimes it prepares us for experience. Sometimes it insulates us from life.
Sometimes this tomb gives us time to feel the pain of the world and to reach out to heal others. Sometimes it locks us up with our own concerns.
In this season, where light and dark balance the day, we seek balance for ourselves.
Grateful for the darkness that has nourished us, we push away the stone to invite in the light, to awaken us to the possibilities among us, possibilities for new life in ourselves and in our world. Thank you, Terry. We're going to hear from Naresh, who we just heard in the children's moment, and then Kelly Kinsman, and then Terry are going to share some of their wisdom and their personal stories about their journeys. And we're grateful for their presence and invite them up.
It was the spring of 2008, and I had just suffered 3 unfortunate episodes, all in quick succession. The first, I was pickpocketed and robbed at Rome's train station by 2 very young girls. And then I had a terrible accident on PCH here that totaled my car. And then I was also suffering from some digestive care related issues. All these 3 things were first time events in my life. Even though none of these were my fault, I felt very vulnerable and somewhat helpless. At the same time, my own business was booming. It was at its peak, and I was overwhelmed and totally out of control to keep up with the business. I started to feel helpless and overwhelmed even more and experienced loss of interest in almost everything. I began to lose weight, rather unexplained, rather rapidly. But the doctors found almost nothing wrong with me after repeated tests. I also started to then have some anxiety attacks and occasionally very, very serious sleeplessness. And that got into a vicious cycle of sleeplessness, anxiety, and lack of interest. It did not make any sense to me. I had always done well in everything. I thought I had total control of mental faculties, so it did not make any sense to me. Then I saw a digestive care professional, and he didn't find anything wrong, but thought it might be a sense of depression. That too was a big surprise to me. I didn't believe it, but I saw my general practitioner, who was not very helpful and could not recommend me to any health professionals through a referral. At one time, not very long thereafter, I had a very serious episode of anxiety attack, and I called a psychiatrist from the Yellow Pages and made an appointment. Now, she examined me and immediately diagnosed deep depression and prescribed a medication, a very common medication. That made things worse. My anxiety grew, and many other things that were not there before started to show up, such as paranoia and unexplained visions. Anyway, at some point, my family and I agreed that I should see another psychiatrist who immediately sent me to recommended I go to the hospital, which turned out to be a mental health facility, as it turns out. There I was for many days. Some of those days were absolutely horrible. The doctors there recognized that the medication I was prescribed before was having an adverse impact on me and changed the medication entirely. That led to a relatively rapid recovery, I should say, or improvement in my condition, and I was sent home with medication and therapy to continue. I had to shut down my business, and at some point, when I felt well enough, I decided to join another company, take a job in local area. It was there that one day, it almost was like flipping off a switch, that I became very confident, self-assured, and eventually very successful in what I did. I was able to accomplish things that I had not been able to do before in my previous professional life. And I still continue to enjoy relatively trouble-free time with depression. All this experience was really a crazy time, literally, but it increased my appreciation for all others who go through difficult times. Not a fault of their own, ever, but go through undiagnosed and suffering. Therefore, I really believe that we should all pay attention to those who we observe to be having some difficulty rather than judge them. And if we experience some behavioral issues ourselves, to seek help as soon as possible rather than waiting, because that makes a big difference. This whole experience has taught me a great deal of humility, and I hope I can keep it for the rest of my life. Thank you.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Kelly Kinsman. I thought this was going to be easier second time around, but it isn't. It's hard to stand up here and say that I have a mental illness, but I'm saying it again. And my fear still exists that you'll judge me through the filter of being mentally ill before you even know who I am. You'll see me as incompetent, unreliable, incapable, and unstable. On none of these, but those are my judgments of myself. I live with bipolar disorder. It's here to stay, and I don't get to recover. For a bit of background on what it was like. I was diagnosed in 1996 with bipolar 2. I was in the middle of a manic episode, and not the first, but it was probably the worst. I refused to be hospitalized. Since that time, I've been on more mood stabilizers, antidepressants, and anti-seizure medications than I can even remember. Some of the medications worked for a few months, some of them didn't work at all, and there were always breakthrough periods of depression or mania, and a lot of numbness, over medication I think, but emotional and physical numbness. I used to hurt myself just to feel something. The side effects were horrible, and I decided at one point to stop taking them. That was in 2012. My psychiatrist fired me. She was not happy with my decision, but I did it. It took a year to withdraw from all the medication, and it's not something I want to do again. Anyway, what it's like now. I don't know where to start, so I'm sorry I have to read this. I'm kind of a mess. The cycle doesn't end, and I don't know what point to jump in. So how about Thursday morning? It's 4 o'clock. I don't want to be awake, but I am. I recognize the empty feeling again, and I know what's coming. I wonder why I didn't see it, what signs I missed, and I think I have time to fool myself into thinking that maybe I can make it better this time. I dance with the thoughts that I've done something wrong and deserve this, that I can stop the cycle, and I'll probably destroy all the good in my life, or that I even have that control. I always end up here. It's like playing dodgeball with fate. Eventually, I'll just stand still and take the hit as best I can. Instead, I write these words. There's no way to avoid the fall, or doubt the warning signs, and hope for a tighter grasp, a stronger hold, a longer run in the light. But darkness reaches up and grabs me by the throat to drown me in the abyss one more time. There is progress. The next time I write, sometimes I forget who I am. I forget who I am, what makes me, my strengths, my inherent worth and value, without the external trappings. Sometimes the smallest hole in the outer shell invites an ever-growing doubt, old thoughts, outgrown patterns, giving way to obstruction and darkness. Don't go there. Sometimes I forget who I am. And somewhere in my own hands I find the needle and thread and begin with trembling fingers and halting action to repair, to mend the tear. Not today. So, it's my monster, my beast. During the worst days, I'm filled with despair, with hopelessness, with dread, and crushing emptiness. I dread the war that rages in my head, the war between me and the abyss, the darkness, the places that I can't even name, and where I don't even exist. I don't know how to win. I have no strength. I can't think, I can't move, and I can't reach the words to describe what I mean or need or feel, and I'm frustrated. I'm lost. I'm out of reach. I'm nothing. It's lonely. It's debilitating. It hurts, and I want to die, often. My win is remembering that eventually the fog lifts. On less intense days, it's just that. It's less intense. It's more manageable. It's more like, hang on, here we go again. More inconvenient than disabling. More holy crap than let me die. It's still a struggle. It's still intense. And it's still hard work. Remember, the fog eventually lifts. And then I get some peace. Maybe a week, maybe days, maybe a few hours, but I get some peace. It's calm, unconflicted, quiet space in my head. I do my best to observe and to move freely, but I'm on high alert. It never lasts. I'm not prone to full manic episodes, but I've had a few. The hypomania creeps in gracefully, and it's slow, and it's steady. I love the energy and the speed, the process, the creativity and the freedom. It's a joy followed by a curse. And just as I feel a bit high and somehow invincible, I recognize where I'm headed. Crush hope, it's always prelude to a crash, always. So we walk the monster again. This is what it looks like based on about the last 6 months or so. Sometimes I get 2 weeks without conflict. Maybe I get 2 weeks of the hypomanic climb, and then some level of depression which lasts a day or 2 or 3 or a week or more. And we repeat it. 2 weeks, and we crash. And who knows? But that's about right. And this is how I manage. And please know that I work very hard to do more than just survive. I function on a really high level. I demand it of myself. The price of choosing no drugs is the total commitment to self-management. I don't put up with a lot of bullshit. I show up and I live by the words because I said I would. Yeah, I'm hard on myself, but there's also a tenderness. I care for my wounds and acknowledge the fragile pieces. These are my responsibilities, and I take them seriously because my life depends on it. I study myself. I take notes of who wakes up every morning and make a plan. And some days I roll a bit out of bed ready for anything. Some days I bargain with myself, like you can skip the bike ride today, you can be late, it's okay, you can sleep late. And some days I'm sure that my existence is a huge mistake. I have tells, I think. The first tell I recognize is when I revert to talking like a New Yorker. I drop F-bombs everywhere, and it surprises me. I laugh, but hypomania is starting to fall. I never want you to notice this or to remind me. There are more signs, and sometimes I fool myself with hope that I can stop the inevitable cycling or make it better. I look back through my writing and notice that I use the exact same words and phrases to describe my deepest depressions. I explore the language and teach myself a new phrase, hopefully something less damning. I accept the statement, I just want to die, as a valid expression and not a threat. I'm learning to walk with the beast. I imagine her as a black hole on a sparkly leash. And that requires that I recognize the phases of depression as part of my being, as opposed to some character default or moral failing. I accept her need to exist. Sometimes she leads, sometimes she bites, and sometimes we can walk side by side. I'm not delusional. I'm not suggesting that I've conquered this. I can't afford the luxury of that degree of cope. But I know all too well that in 5 minutes I might crumble, or maybe now, falling into a broken heap. Or not. My hope lives in reclaiming my broken pieces and in breaking through my own self-loathing and despair, and reimagining what it means to be whole and living there. My hope lies in knowing that whole is the shattered, that whole includes the unending darkness and encompasses the fall. My broken self is whole. One of the themes of this service is to communicate how we would like to be treated and what's helpful. And please know that I only speak for myself. What I want is not to be treated differently. And don't feel sorry for me. I don't want your pity. Pity speaks to weakness and erodes strength. I can say to someone that I'm sorry you go through whatever it is that troubles you, but I can't deny their strength or second guess their own process. And I don't want to hear whispers of, oh, she's bipolar, she must be off her meds, when you judge my mistakes. I want you to stand next to me and hold space. And should you witness my fall, hold out your hand. And don't doubt my capabilities based on this diagnosis. Just watch me. I'm active in the church Zoom meetings, and I help organize the pre-election postcarding events, the food drive, and I help on the tech end of the Saturday adult ed classes. I do my own full-time job, and I show up every day, the best way I can. Sometimes it's exhausting, but that's what I'm committed to. I left you hanging at Thursday morning. I bargained. I skipped the bike ride. I made it to work on time, and I admitted I was struggling, hoped it would be quick. It wasn't the easiest day. My concentration was severely tested, but I managed to be useful and efficient. I accomplished what I needed to. I cried, I talked to a friend, I laughed, and at the end of the day I went home to hide and wait for the night to pass, and hope that Friday would bring relief. It didn't, and neither did Saturday. Sunday was worse. Monday I was on edge, and Tuesday I managed my usual bike ride, but my body felt like it was made of lead, and I was physically overwhelmed. For the rest of the day I struggled to find purpose and begged for distraction from the destruction. On Wednesday I could barely function. I spent the day at home trying to calm the roar of discord in my mind. Sometimes all I can do is let it wash through me, careful not to act on irrational impulses. An early evening on Wednesday, my head got quiet. It was still, it was silent and calm. It was over for about 3 days. And then we started to cycle again. It doesn't end, but I do the best I can.
Good morning. I'm Terry Masters. I've been a member here at Pacific Unitarian Church for 40 years. And I have been bipolar for 43 years. A little bit of parallel there. And I have been loved by this congregation very much. There's a few things that I'm going to ask you not to say to me. Oh, you're bipolar? I am not bipolar. I have bipolar. I have a diagnosed mood disorder, but it is not the whole of me. None of us would say, did you hear that Mary is cancer? Our words matter. Everyone gets a little down sometimes. True. But not everyone lives for months on end, self-isolating, often unable to work, suicidal. Feeling a little down is generally situational. Bipolar depression can appear for no apparent reason. Now, this one sounds okay, depending on how you say it. When you say to someone, hey, how are you? Great, good, it's fabulous. When you say to someone, how are you? That's pity. It doesn't feel good. Let me tell you what helps me. This is dicey. When you're talking to anyone, not just someone with bipolar disorder, when you give advice, the underlying message is that the person you're talking to cannot take care of themselves. It's difficult, but waiting to be asked for your help is the best bet. I'm pretty sure that I know more about my condition than you will ever know. I've had bipolar disorder for 37 years, although my husband thinks it's probably more. And he should know. And I was diagnosed 16 years ago. I'm well versed in my condition. I don't know everything, but I know a lot. You could learn from me instead of helping me. Now, I'd like to tell you my favorite helping me story. I was going to work. I'd gotten out of my car. I was walking up the stairs to the front of the building. And a woman that had just started working there, I didn't know her well at all. I'm not sure I knew her name. Came toward me. Now, everybody where I work knows that I have bipolar disorder. It's not a secret. I don't have a problem with that at all. But apparently someone had told her that. And she came toward me. I was a little down. Actually, I was very down. And she could see that. It's easy to see. And when she got to me, she said, you know, first off, she said, how are you? That's first. And then she said, you know, you'd probably feel better if you put on a little lipstick. My favorite helping story. What do I want? Those are some things I don't want. What do I want? I want someone to look into my face, to listen and hear without interruption, to demonstrate empathy. I hear you and understand you and care for you, and not sympathy. How are you? This is what I would like from you and for you. And don't forget your lipstick.
I never forget my lipstick. We're going to do a split plate today, which in our tradition means that the church gets half of whatever you donate to the church for this assigned period. It's with the suicide prevention hotline, which comes highly regarded, and a bunch of serious professionals who are there 24 hours a day. So if it's in your heart to give and to help possibly keep people alive, please do so. Resh is going to lead us off with a little bit of humor to liberate our pocketbooks. Resh?
Hello again. So, a man was being tailgated by a stressed out woman on a busy boulevard. And then suddenly the light turned yellow in front of him. And just like he should, he applied brakes and stopped. Even though he could have gone through the red light by accelerating a little bit, the tailgating woman hit the roof. And with the horn and screaming in frustration and yelling and screaming because she missed her chance to get through the intersection. She was still in her ranting when she heard a tap on her window and looked up to see the face of a very serious policeman who asked her to get out of the car. He handcuffed her and took her to the police station, where she was searched, fingerprinted, photographed, and then put into a holding cell. About an hour later, another policeman opened the door of the cell and took her back to the booking room, where the arresting officer was waiting for her with her personal effects. And he said, "I'm very sorry for this mistake. You see, I was driving behind you while you were blowing your horn, flipping the guy in front of you, and cussing a blue streak at him. But then I noticed, choose life, license plate on your car. What would Jesus do? On the bumper sticker, follow me to Sunday school, and the chrome-plated Christian fish emblem on the trunk. Naturally, I assumed you had stolen the car. Now, please give generously. We have a split plate today."
Well, we're going to do the national anthem for political diversity here, so let's celebrate that. Ready? There once was a musical troupe, a begin singing folk group, sang mountain ballads and folk songs of our land. Here along musical ability, folks thought it would go far, but political incompatibility led to their downfall. Well, the one on the right was on the left, and the one in the middle was on the right, and the one on the left was in the middle, and the guy was a Methodist. This musical aggregation toured the entire nation, singing traditional ballads and folk songs of our land. Great virtuosity, and soon we were the rage, but political animosity prevailed upon the stage. Where the one on the right was on the left, and the one in the middle was on the right, and the one on the left was in the middle, and the guy in the red burned his driver's license. Well, the curtain had ascended, a hush fell on the crowd, as thousands they were gathered to hear the folk songs of our land. But they took the politics seriously, and at night at the concert hall, as the audience watched the lyrically, they had free for all. Well, the one on the right was on the bottom, and the one on the middle was on the top, and the one on the left had a broken arm, and the guy in the middle said, "Oh dear."
Let us remember that this church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all of our differences and beneath all of our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together, in spite of time and death and the space between the stars. We pause in silent witness to that unity.
May the blessing of love be upon you. May love's peace abide with you. May love's presence illuminate your hearts now and forevermore. So be it. Amen. Shalom. Salam. Namaste. And blessed be. And in the Quaker tradition we say, and it is now that our service truly begins. Thanks for joining us here today. Sorry for the technological troubles.